Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here from Oilers Live. I've got Mr. Mike Megathread Dursa with me tonight from his prison cell, Oilers prison cell. We got to get the prison block or something. I don't know. We got to figure out a name for it. Thanks for joining me. I haven't done one of these in a long time. So, well, it hasn't been that long, but it's been a couple of weeks, I think, since I've gone live. And feel a little bit rusty. Forgot a couple things already. But ready to have some fun tonight, I think. All right. Welcome, Mike. How you doing?
Live from the Cell Block 99.
Cell Block. There it is. Cell Block 99. You probably already had that. I know you've been doing some live Twitter feeds. So Cell Block 99. I like it. Done. I like what you have done with the place there. A little Hemsky. Hey, what do you got back there? Messier? You got to move your head a little bit.
Yeah, I retired Hemsky because I had the ability to, but
yeah, and the oil. That's the Seth MacFarlane one, right?
Yeah,
like that. I like that one. It was kind of controversial, a little bit controversial, but
I'm not sure what the controversy was, but
some people hated it. I wouldn't call it controversy, but certainly wasn't everybody's favorite. It was one of my favorites. What year was that? Do you know?
I think that was mid-90s.
Mid-90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd have to be, I guess. No, had to be late 90s, I would think. Maybe. I know I was in Toontown at the time, living in the glorious city of Bridges, Saskatoon, which I spent a little bit of a stop there. So, game tonight was good. Finally pulled out a win. Feels like I'd say it feels like forever since we've had one of those. What's your thoughts on the game, Mike? I'll let you start.
2 games in a row with some points, so I think that's positive. Yeah, I think good start coming out of the gate. A couple of power plays, and I thought, you were critiquing me last time on my suggestion that I don't mind Nurse on the power play. I saw some good passing in the first minute of the first power play there, and one shot that was almost a seeing eye shot that almost went in, but it wasn't a bullet by any means, but it got through to the net and made for kind of a tricky save there for Lehner. And Hitch has done a couple things. I think, sometimes this organization hears what the fans have to say, and about 3 weeks later goes to what we actually say, because finally you saw tonight Dry, Nuge, and Chase on as a second unit. And those guys drew a penalty shortly after the first power play. And Nurse kind of shot from the right-hand side, kind of a low half clapper that was dangerous on that power play. And that whole sequence, I think, led to kind of a power play goal where it went Nurse to Nuge, McDavid to Dry into the back of the net, and was kind of a pretty goal. I think they needed to score on that power play because, you get 2 power plays back to back, and if you come up empty there, then the momentum probably shifts to the Islanders, and away they go. But they got it done. And then shortly after that, Toby Reeder made a beautiful pass to Gagne, and I guess I'm losing my set behind me, but and Sam made no mistake. So I'm glad it was Reeder to Sam and not Sam to Reeder, because you probably know what would have happened there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, then after that, I guess it kind of, the wheels fell off a little bit. There was a shot from the point, and Ratty kind of lost his man, and the rebound was kind of gathered up there and put in the back of the net. And there went Wayne.
There's no, it's hard to be called Cell Block 99 without. The
99.
budget here at Oilers Live is not huge, so we can't really afford proper fixings and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So before you go there, you and I had this conversation about Nurse on the power play, and I wasn't keen on him in the least. But I'll give credit where it's due. I mean, once he started to learn that how to shoot the puck, right, and the couple times he'd shot it, if you go back 5-6 games ago, when he did get it towards the net, it created chances, and he's got a good shot. He won the hardest shot, right, in the Oilers skill competition. I mean, he's got a good shot. We know that. We know he's got a little bit of speed on him. He's a capable player, and he's capable back there. And as he started to warm up back there, I think he's the right choice right now. He's starting to shoot the puck. But when he didn't shoot the puck, and there was a stretch of 4 or 5 games where everybody knew he was going to fake and pass it off, that just wasn't great. I thought on the power play tonight, despite only, I guess they only got the one power play goal, but I thought they moved the puck really well. They might have missed a couple chances, but you know what? They kept it in the zone. They moved the puck well. I thought it was one of the better power play nights that we've had in at least a half dozen games. Yeah, your thoughts there?
good zone time for sure, and good pressure, but still not shooting the puck enough. In terms of Nurse back there, it didn't happen tonight, but it was a few games ago. Nuge was developing this nifty little back pass to him, like kind of a no look behind the back pass to him, and that was opening up like massive holes for him to shoot the puck. The one thing I'll still criticize though a little bit is I think as much as they've got a load of talent on that first unit, they still could use a right shot. There was one play where I think it was Nurse or maybe even McDavid passed it down to Nuge, and if he was a right shot, he had a one-timer, and it's probably in the back of the net. But because he's a lefty, he had to stop it and kind of play it on his backhand, and just that half second or second delay, it allows the defense to reset and kind of takes away from their ability to cash in there. But
yeah, no, I agree. I think we use the term small steps. It's unfortunate we're using it this late in the year. One of the things, right, is but it just kind of seeing some of the core players maybe get a chance to realize what it takes to win. Did you listen to Oilers Now today?
No, I listened to the post-game interviews, but pretty much sat around waiting for you.
Yeah. A lot of people have said that before. Yeah, nobody. So on Oilers Now, Stauffer had Craig Simpson on today.
Sorry. I listened to Oilers Now today. I thought you meant Overtime Open Line.
No, sorry. Yeah, Oilers Now. So you listened to Simpson, and I think he said it probably best, right? Is for a number of years this team has been, and I'm as guilty as anybody, right? Like I think that for a number of years this team has thought that they were a skill team, right? And yeah, we've got obviously we've got guys like McDavid and guys like Draisaitl, and they're skilled players. But the overall of this team is a blue-collar team, right? And if they're not working hard, right, if they believe that they are a skilled team and that they can get away without the work ethic, they're mistaken. And the last, I tweeted about it last game, was one of the things that I thought wasn't bad was taking McDavid out of the lineup for a game. And it took these guys, I thought, 2 periods before they realized what it took to win a game, right? Like in the third period, that might have been the best period of hockey collectively that everybody on that team has had, with the exception of McDavid, right? Last game, the game against Phoenix. They look great. Well, I shouldn't even say the whole third period. It was more like the last 7 minutes of the game. They looked fantastic. But, Simpson, I think, and you tell me if you think I'm right or wrong, but he said this team has to work hard every single night to win games. They're not going to do it based on skill alone. You might get the odd game where McDavid can take it away for you, but for the most part, I mean, you see nobody else is really scoring on the team. Nice to have Gagne put one in, and Clefbaum put one in tonight. But, for the most part, right, this team needs to do that little extra, which I thought that they did at the end of the game against Arizona, against Phoenix. Arizona, I guess now. I thought that the other thing that I thought came out of that Arizona game was that, and people have been yelling and screaming this all season, right, is they want Draisaitl to lead his own line, right? I think that, that little bit of time that Draisaitl had last game as kind of the number one guy on this team was maybe a little bit of a good shift for him. He needs to understand, which most of us know that watch him, that he's capable, right? Like there's the guys that think that Draisaitl's not worth the money. I'm not one of those guys. I think he's very worth the money, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I think he can drive his own line. He just needs to know that he can. And I thought the end of the Arizona game and this game with Nuge, I think, YEG Oilers fan says Dry and Nuge look good together. I thought I liked the line today. You got you finally. This might be the first time in 30 or 40 games we've run two solid lines. And I liked Gagne up there with McDavid. I thought that was nice. What did you think about that?
I thought this was one of Leon's better games. He looked strong. He looked determined. He was skating. He was playing well. And to give him somebody with some skill with him, I think is essential. To me, it doesn't matter if he's with McDavid or with Nugent Hopkins, but I think he needs one or the other. And for me, I mean, if the guy's going to score, let's face it, he's got potential to hit the 50-goal plateau. I mean, that's huge. You want to trade him?
Yeah, and Dash 8 says 100-point player not worth the money, ? Yeah, absolutely, right? Like, it is idiotic. I don't know who's saying it, to be honest. I mean, it's like I hear it in the wind, right? The odd time I see it on my timeline, somebody saying Dry is a waste of time. But honestly, like, the guy is outstanding, right?
Lazy.
Yeah, lazy. Somebody did put on there, go back to YEG Oilers fan. He said Dry's defensive play the last two games has been great too. I actually think that whether you and I actually had an episode of Oilers Live, that game where I felt he didn't skate back hard enough. I don't know if you remember that goal. Can't remember now. Who was it?
Vander Kane, San Jose.
Yeah, Vander Kane. And you know what? He didn't skate back hard enough. Whether or not that was completely his fault, and there's some debate over whose fault it was, I think since that time he's been skating a little bit harder back. And hey, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I've never thought him to be lazy. I think he's a kind of and don't take this the wrong way. I'm not comparing him to Mario Lemieux, but Mario Lemieux used to look like he wasn't skating, right? And he'd blow by guys. And Draisaitl, a lot of times, just because he's a big guy and he's got that big stride, he doesn't look like he's skating, but he's got some good wheels. Tonight, he won that puck race at the end of the game tonight. It was great. He the one time he drove the puck to the net, nice inside out, drove the puck to the net, got a good chance. Hell of a game tonight. I'd say he was first star tonight. Who did get the first star? Do you know? I never watch that shit anymore. Who got the first star? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know the 3 stars, but yeah, I another strong performance from him. People probably most people that want to call him lazy don't know that he beat Taylor Hall for the fastest skater before Connor was a part of the program here.
Holy shit! I didn't even know that.
Yeah, just at the Oilers skills, that they do.
McDavid
He won that his rookie season. He can skate. Some people want to refer. Stauffer used to refer to Dustin Penner as like a European basketball player, kind of a big guy that doesn't look like he's moving but can move. Draisaitl's that guy. I think on that Evander Kane play, it wasn't that he wasn't skating hard back. If you go and relook at the video, he lost his man. Kane got ahead of him, and then he recognized that Kane was ahead of him. Then he busted his ass to try to catch him, but it was too late.
So, Dry didn't even get a top 3 tonight. Top 3 star. I think that's garbage, by the way. Glenn McDavid first star. Oilers fan McDavid got first star. Okay, let's switch gears here a little bit because there's a guy that we talk about Gagne, we talk about McDavid, Draisaitl, Nuge. Nuge, I thought had a solid game. Colby Cave. I mean, he's not nothing stellar, but isn't he kind of what we wanted out of Tobias Reeder tonight? Like, isn't that the kind of play just with a little bit more? Like, both of them need a little bit more finish. Although Reeder's pass to Gagne tonight was awesome. But all in all, though, that's kind of the work ethic, the speed, the play. That's what we were expecting out of Reeder. We're getting it out of a waiver pickup in Colby Cave. Thoughts on his game tonight?
Well, I think Reeder's play is fine. It's the finish that isn't.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with him. And like I said earlier, I'm glad it was him passing to Gagne rather than Sam passing it to him. But maybe he needs a tap-in goal like that. Like, that was a beautiful assist and setup. And I mean, Sam, that was in the back of the net. No doubter. Should have been that's what Alex Chason should have had on Tuesday with his empty net, pretty much too. But
he got a post tonight, Chason. I didn't think. I put out what I thought the line should be if Connor McDavid wasn't in the lineup. And with the players that we've got, I've got Chason playing with Draisaitl kind of as a duo. And if McDavid wasn't in, I wanted Dry on one line and Nuge on his own. I just don't understand this running one line crap, right? Like, just one solid line to me sort of says to the other team, put your best players out against this line, and you don't have to worry about anybody else, especially with the Oilers, right? Like, we have to have 2 lines going at all times. Tonight was maybe the first time that we ran 2 lines in I don't know how many games, and I really liked it. Like, I loved the lineup today, and I was fine with them promoting Gagne to the top line. Why did you Oilers fans say Oilers got to trade Chason? I think that's kind of a given. Chason's not. He's probably not long for the Oilers. But what's your thought on the lines tonight?
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is that we're not good enough defensively to win games 1-0. So I think you kind of have to put a little firepower on the line to be able to score some goals, because there's just no secondary scoring really to speak of. I mean, it was nice for Sam to chip in, but how often does that happen that you get, a little bit of punch from the other lines? I think you honestly could count on one hand how many times, in the season they've had secondary scoring.
Yeah, just about never. And we've got it. You know, if this team wants to win, they've got obviously to have that secondary scoring. Just before we get a little bit more into it, and I've got a few people on all the platforms that we're streaming live. You can listen if you happen to need to leave Twitter or whatever, or you want to go. You can listen at Oilers.live. There's a pop-out radio, also the Simple Radio app. Gives you radio that you can listen on Android Auto or Apple iTunes or whatever, Apple CarPlay or what do they call it? Autoplay? Who cares? YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. We're on every platform. I want to just say a couple things. One is doing the Oilers Live Cup again, which you know, Mike, and I hope you're going to make it. Registration is open. I haven't put the details in. You can go to Oilers.live to find the registration. It's on the right-hand side. So we're going to go with the same again. I think 13 players aside. And so 3 forward lines, 2 D lines, and just have some fun. Be Team Mega Thread again against Team Oilers Live. Oilers Live, I think, lit it up last time, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way it goes again. That's going to be here in Calgary on the date of the Battle of Alberta, which is the last game of the season for the Oilers. I know there's been a couple guys that have already said they're coming in for the game and are going to play, so that's going to be fun. The total results of our last game, which we did charity for Chinook Autism Society. I know our friend at Rudistic and the Chinook Autism Society put in their big order for sensory toys and weighted blankets, and they expect to have those soon. So that's we're pretty excited about that. He's going to send some pictures of some of the goods that they're going to get. I am going to pick, I'm going to stick with the autism charity, and we'll probably, what I thought from what I learned the last time we did it was there's a serious need for some help with all of these autism children that are becoming adults now. So would like to do that. So that's the housekeeping things out of the way. If you want to call in tonight, you can do that for sure as well. 587-907-5483. So the phone line is open, and we'll take calls. Let's go back to talking hockey. We've got at Condors fan says, how did Curry look out there? Good to have a Condors fan listening in. Your thoughts on Curry? He didn't play a lot of minutes, but I thought he looked good. Your thoughts?
He made a couple things happen. He got his bell rung there in the third period, but I mean, that happens in the course of an NHL game. But for a while there, him and Lucic were making some things happen.
Yeah. Did you just say Lucic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Actually, I've not been too upset with Lucic's play the last since the beginning of the year. I think once you put him in the right spot, right, you're not expecting him to be performing by getting goals and everything. I thought he does what you'd expect out of a third or fourth liner, and he's been decent that way. And that hit on Clutterbuck tonight was worth every penny to see. Love that. Hate that guy. Love seeing him go. Thoughts on the McDavid hit? You think that's going to the league?
I don't know if that's suspension worthy myself. I think a 2-minute minor is probably suffice there. If more damage is inflicted, then yeah, I mean, it was definitely a hit to the head, but guy was kind of bent over, so I don't think he might get a phone call, he might get a fine, but I don't think it's anything more than that myself.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I think that they do send that. It's a guarantee they send that to the league, just because it's a headshot. Obviously, it wasn't that bad. I think Letty might have played it up a little bit too take one to the head and play it up. Although, no matter how you take it at the speed they play at, it's going to hurt a little bit. You're going to get your bell rung. So he might have been down for real, but I don't think it was that bad. And it's like Connor said after the game. I mean, he kind of let up a little bit, and then there was no intention to it. And Connor, as we know, is not a dirty player. Nice to see Remenda finally call, like anybody, like actually call out the refs. I mean, I've heard people skirt around the issue before. That was maybe, in my mind, probably one of the more sort of full out, ignore the call type of, statements that I've heard from anybody on the media panels this year. What's your thoughts on that?
It was more than calling them out. He was hot. He was pissed, and he was as pissed as you can be on the air without crossing that line. If you want to endear yourself to Oiler fans, that's one good way to do it. Is call out officiating on McDavid, because everybody's going to be behind that.
Yeah, fair enough. That is quite true. Maybe that's the underlying thing there. Is Remenda's just trying to get some fans back. We don't often agree with him, but certainly that was, to me, it was blatant. And it's right. And John Shannon, although he didn't want to get into it, he was saying the same thing, right? Like he did what they've been doing all season, which is skirt around the issue. He said, well, McDavid plays through it, right? Like he does the right thing and he plays through it. It doesn't matter. Penalty is a penalty. Call it, right?
I appreciate Remenda for not being Switzerland like Shannon was there.
Absolutely. Like that that kind of thing has been driving me nuts all year. We've seen it all year. I thought too, the makeup calls on the calls after that to make it 5-3, why they called Nurse for, that's not a cross.
Yeah, I didn't understand that sequence myself. I thought it was coincidental minors. They score a power play goal and then they're still in the power play and score another one 20 seconds later. Like I didn't even hear the explanation on the broadcast. Like,
yeah, no, it's
probably because there wasn't one.
Yeah, no, they showed the slash by Russell, which 9 out of 10 times doesn't get called. We see it happen all the time. It wasn't brutal by any stretch. A little bit of a tap, as we like to say, and then why Nurse was called on a coincidental, I'm not quite sure. I mean, again, a little bit of a tap to the back, which happens in front of the net all the time. But clearly, I think that one was the ref trying to, mitigate any sort of return of what was going on last game, where Nurse kind of got screwed out of a couple of shots to the head by the linesman.
Nurse has a good ability to forget things, though. Like, that little melee happened there, and Nurse goes to the penalty box, and, you'd think coming out of the box later in the game he would want some retribution or whatever, and he didn't get into that. Almost wish he would, but he let it go, kind of goldfish-like that way.
Yeah, goldfish-like. Completely off the hockey topic. Did you happen to see the size of that goldfish the guy caught in the river or whatever? Not somewhere in the States, this guy caught you know what? I'm going to find it on Twitter. I'm going to retweet it for you guys. But it was a massive goldfish. He catch and release, completely not hockey related, but I'm gonna retweet it right now. What do you call them? They're koi fish, right? That's what they're. So big old goldfish this guy caught, and I don't even know where it was. But anyway, back to hockey. Sorry. I had to bring that up because I just saw it the other day and I was like, holy crap! Like that thing is huge. I mean my curiosity went straight away to I wonder if that's good eating. but still a koi fish. Not even sure you could eat that stuff. All right, so what do we got? Condors fan says a line I would do is Cave, Malone, and Curry. You are a Condors fan, so I get the Malone and Curry match lineup. Cave, I've liked Cave's game. I'd have them on as a fourth line for sure. A lot of people made a lot of noise about bringing Curry up. He's having a career year down in Bakersfield. He was scoring goals like mad. I watched a lot of those games. Right place, right time, good positioning, good hockey IQ. You bring him up, and then you put him, on a line with, Lucic and Brodziak, and you're basically putting him on a grinder line where he's not going to have the same opportunities. What's your thought on that?
Not enough time for Curry. He's almost a point per game guy for the Condors, and then you bring him in here and you're not really giving him a real look. When you're playing 5-6 under 10 minutes a game, it's really hard to work yourself into a game, and you can't really have high expectations of that kind of minutes. It seemed like I don't know what the breakdown is, but it seemed like the second line, like Draisaitl, Nuge, and Chason were actually getting more ice time than McDavid's line. It seemed like he was pretty quick to go back to those guys, and for good reason. They were having success, but yeah, you didn't see I really liked Lucic's game tonight. He that one play, he stripped the puck in the second period off of somebody from the Islanders and just kind of does typical Lucic thing, gets to the blue line, dumps it in, but then they have sustained zone time there for over a minute.
Yeah.
There was a change on the play. They drew a penalty. I mean, he didn't have a lot of shifts tonight, but it seemed like every shift he was doing something that was productive. The next big shift I noticed from him was when Clutterbuck tried to hit him and he laid him out, and then that kind of led to another long, I think almost another minute of zone time, and then late in the third he's skating down the wing and it's kind of a nothing play, and he doesn't really have the angle, so he just sifts the puck on the net and it goes cleft bomb for some reason. I don't know why, but he busted his ass to the net and the puck was right there for him to pot it to tie it. So, I kind of liked what I saw out of, some of the more peripheral players on the team. They contributed, and we don't get that most nights. So that was a positive. I like the Oilers game tonight. Even if it would have ended up in a loss, they were playing the right way. Outside of about a minute and a half in the first period, they played a pretty good game.
Yeah, and in the first period, right, they came out when it was 2-0. I thought this was maybe finally we're going to have a blowout game in the Oilers' favor. When it became 2-1, I kind of had that what we've got Oilers trauma, that feeling
go again syndrome.
Yeah, this one's going to get away on us again. Even Mark Spector said the Oilers are dominating. I saw that he tweeted out about halfway through the first period. He's like, Oilers are dominating. And then,
wait for it.
And then he retweeted and commented later to say Oilers are not dominating anymore. But that it's they just came out. They came out well. I'll go back to this. I really think that McDavid being out for the one game was not necessarily a bad thing for this team. Those guys at the end of that game in Arizona, I thought they came together. They played probably the hardest sort of 5 to 10 minutes of hockey I've seen them play all year. there were guys that were playing like the way that we've expected them to play for some time now. And if they can play like Craig Simpson says, this is a team that's got to work hard all the time, right? They're not a skilled team. If they can play like that, they can win games. And once you start winning games, it's contagious, right? Like you just get that confidence in you. You've played enough hockey in your life or enough sports in your life to know that there's a certain element of talent, but then there's a certain element of just confidence and belief that you're going to go out there and win some games. And I think there's a bit of this team that doesn't quite realize that there's like they had talent at one point. Guys like Lucic, were 20+ goal scorers, right? And he's not that far removed from that. I always find it a little bit hard to believe that talent's not there anymore, that it just magically disappeared. One of the things, though, that to me is obvious is, other than the game against Arizona, when we had our actual top defenseman in the lineup, it was February of 2018. It was a whole season ago that we had all of our defensemen in the lineup at the same time. And then even then, as we know, Clefbaum had shoulder problems back then, and Sekera was coming off knee surgery, right? Like, this is I'm not, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this team is is going to the Stanley Cup or anything. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying they have the talent. I think we still need some horses, and I think even given the if you go back to when we did make the playoffs, we've traded away a lot of that talent, unfortunately. But this team has more talent than they're playing, and some of it is injury related. I think having your D, if you take the top D out of anybody's team, they're going to have troubles. I don't want to make excuses for them, but we've seen them play 2 good games. They've had their defense for 2 games. We've actually seen them play, I'd say the last 4 games have been solid, hardworking Oilers hockey. We've been out-shooting teams. We've been slowly gaining some confidence. And again, I go back to McDavid being out and some of these guys realizing that they can play without him, right? He's certainly a big part of the team. We're not going to win a lot of games without McDavid, but this team is still a fringe team, but it's better than what we've seen. It's not as disappointing as what we've seen. I don't think that we're making the playoffs. I'll put it right out there right now. Like, if you're holding on to hope, I mean, we need to go near perfect. Not because it's just that the other teams are all playing so well right now that we need to catch the St. Louis's and that of this world. So don't hold on to the playoffs, but we got to have some noticeable improvement, and hopefully when the trade deadline comes. What's your thought, though? Do you think that we have to, as a team, as an organization, do you think that Gretzky and his cohorts need to shed salary before the deadline? Or do you think we can, hold tight and do the moves we need to make come the off season?
I think you need to start that process immediately. I'll go back to that, but I think on Stauffer's show or 1260, I'm not sure which, but they were trying to do a breakdown and basically saying, I think the numbers were something like 17, 6, and 4 the rest of the way. As a team, you can't really think that way. All you can think about is your next game and trying to get a win, and you just go from there. You just one game every game. That's the way you got to think about it. If they go on a run, great. If they don't, they don't. I don't think you can hold your breath, thinking that, okay, we're close, we're going to make it. I think, you've kind of almost run out of runway. They're not mathematically eliminated yet, but, it's the probability, I think, is just over 1% of making the playoffs. So that's not very good. As Jim Carrey would say, there's still a chance, but I think that's pretty much a write-off at this point. So I think, trade deadline is right around the corner next week. So make whatever moves you can. If you can deal Alex Chase on for a third-round pick, I don't think you hesitate. If it's a deeper pick than that, then I don't know if that's really worth it. I mean, but if you can recover that third-round pick you gave to Florida, as part of Weidman for Petrovic, you definitely do it. Save face a little bit there. I mean, you can always talk to Alex in the summer about bringing him back if you feel like you want to go that route.
Yeah.
Some people think that, we got his best hockey before Christmas and, we're never going to see that again. I think he can probably put up 17 goals next year, but he just won't do it before Christmas time. It'll take the whole year. That's kind of where I'm at with that. I mean, I would think long and hard about Zach Kassian. I know he's on a hot streak right now, but I think he's kind of I've liked Zach Kassian as a penalty killer. I've liked, I like having what he can bring. I mean, he's a lot like Lucic in a way, but with better wheels.
Yeah.
But I would consider it. Further than that, if guys like Jujhar Khaira, Puljujärvi, I mean, to me, I wouldn't deal Yessi unless you can get something considerable back. I think you'd be trading him at his absolute lowest, and to me, that's not a good idea. For the way I look at it is put him down in Bakersfield, let him play, meaningful hockey, hopefully deep into May, and maybe beyond. That's what I would do there. But a defenseman for me, like, there's too many guys that fill the same spot. You've got Benning, Gravel, Petrovic, and Manning. I don't think anybody's taken Manning, but we can hope and pray. But one of those guys, I think you gotta part ways with. There's too many, all in the same realm, same caliber. And next year you're going to have guys like Jones and Bear that are probably going to be ready to be NHL players. I think you give Bouchard a look, but you don't, hang the hopes and dreams of the franchise on him coming in and lighting up the world next year. You take your time with him too.
So you bring up something good, and let me just respond to first at John R. Bubba. Said Cave, Gagner, Reader line made believe that Toby might score before the end of the season. I agree. I kind of feel for Toby Reader, but and we know he's got it in him to score a couple goals. Hopefully he does that. I think if he keeps playing with Gagner, I think Gagner was a victim of circumstance in Vancouver. He probably would have been playing anywhere else in the league. Spooner actually had a good game in Vancouver, by the way. Had a couple good chances, so good on him. He certainly didn't do anything with Edmonton. And then again, same. What if Jesse doesn't want to play here? Trade him like how Yzerman traded Drouin. Wait till the right package comes up. So now, okay, so that leads me into kind of what I want to talk about, because you brought up something kind of key. And we're talking, as we go into the trade deadline. This is how I see it, right? We've got a good, I think, even if you go to the TSN, top 24, under 24 or whatever, the Oilers still finished number one, right? Because we've got Draisaitl and we've got McDavid. And in my mind, two of the top players in the league today. We've got Nugent Hopkins, who I still love as a player. Like, he's still be one of my all-time favorite Oilers. And in my mind, if you're running all three of those guys, you got enough skill, and you're running all those three guys at center, you arguably have the best center depth in the league, in my mind. And then you've got, if Sekera's actually, I thought, looked pretty decent the last 2 games. I didn't think anything of him. He's while he's getting a little bit older in terms of, I think he's 32, 33, he's still, I think got a couple of years in him. If he can stay healthy, and Clefbaum can stay healthy, I think, that's a good pair of D there to build around. And then you've got guys, as you mentioned, you've got guys like Bouchard, Bear, Jones, these guys that are, coming up. And so for me, I think what the Oilers need to do as we get into the end of the season, and Condors fan said he'd like to see Lagesson in a couple of Oilers games next year. I think to me, what I think is important is, that the Oilers continue to go down this path where everybody is available, right? So Cassian is available, right? Like you were talking about. And Puljujarvi for that matter. And I like Puljujarvi. I'd like to see him stay. But if the right deal comes around, you trade Puljujarvi. But don't trade him for nothing, because it's going to come and bite us in the ass, right? I think if we trade him for nothing, if we give up on him. And just about everybody is available on this team, for the goal of freeing up some cap space and giving us some room to move, and however we're going to do it. With the other goal of, okay, so if my 2 goals going into next season would be having a little bit extra cap space, some room there to make some moves when and if needed. And then the other goal would be to have at least a decent NHL caliber team that you aren't feeling required to rush a guy like Bouchard, or required to rush Bear or Lagesson or Jones, and Jones is not last by any stretch in that list, because I think Jones is pretty much ready. But that you have the option that you don't have to rush those guys into the lineup. I think if we can do that, and we're not going from 0 to number 1 next year, right? But if we can be, a middling pack and kind of secure a playoff spot, then I think whoever the GM is, and my personal opinion is it should be somebody outside of the organization. Not because I don't think Keith Gretzky could do the job. I just think it's time to get somebody new, right? Keep Keith Gretzky on as assistant GM. I don't care what they do there, because I think he's earned his spot there. But somebody new with that goal in mind, right? And then you have, John Shannon was talking about it earlier today. Was every team that does really well in this league has 10 draft picks in their game day lineup. 10 of their own draft picks, right? Like, these guys have developed. They've done the right things by players. However you want to look at the whole Puljujarvi situation. The other thing I think is you send Puljujarvi down right now because it's being made too big of a deal, right? And you don't say anything about it. As the organization just shuts up about it, right? If the media want to talk about it, next question. Be Tortorella, right? Like, next question. I'm done, right? Like, the kid's been through enough, not just from the team, but from the media and every other fan that's out there right now. Just let him play, right? Like, have you ever seen a happier guy in your life, right? Like, Puljujarvi as a character guy is a great guy. I don't want to take that from the kid, right? Like, just go put him in the minors, let him get some confidence, and forget about it until he's ready to come back, right? Anyway, that's kind of my look at it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just I'll touch on Sekera for a second before I go to Puljujarvi. I thought he had a real strong game, until 6 minutes to go in the third when he just about won the game for the Islanders with that turnover there.
Fair.
But yeah, it's nice to have him back. He's so calm, and Chris Russell is a heart and soul guy. He gives you everything he has, but let's face it, he's not the world's best passer of the puck.
No.
Reggie just puts pucks on people's tapes, and out you go. It's simple, it's tidy. He doesn't really have to be the best skater in the world because he just gets to the puck and makes a play. He's a heady player. He just made one mistake that just about ruined a pretty good effort from him. And in my opinion, I mean, him and Jones would make a great third pairing right now. Jones is head and shoulders above anybody else they can put on that third pair. But yeah, in terms of Yessie, I like, if you're in a different organization, what are you giving up to acquire Puljujärvi? Some other lost soul prospect, a 5th round pick. Well, you're going to trade a 4th overall pick, for a 5th. Does that make sense? To me, it doesn't. To me, I'd rather sit on that potential that he has and hope that he can develop into an everyday NHLer.
Yeah, and you are not. Yeah, you hit it right on the head there. Right, is you're not going to get enough out of a trade for Puljujärvi to make it worth our while. We hold the cards, frankly. Right, like a lot of people have made a lot of about his agent meeting with the team, and frankly, right, like his Oilers have his rights. They have the right to do how they want with him, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I like. I'm not saying that because I don't like Puljujärvi. I think that the kid's got a future in the league. I think he has been misused with the Oilers, and in fact, I kind of feel like, and I like Hitch, but I don't think Hitch is the right coach for him, and I don't think McClellan was the right coach for him. But he can go down to Bakersfield. They're having amazing success. We haven't talked about the Condors at all. Love that team. Love the guys on there. Cooper Marody, just smart hockey player, right? Good to see, what's his name that's been called up. He was up for a couple games there. Big beard.
Gambrella.
Yeah, Gambardella. He looks good. I've watched probably the last 6 Condors games, and really loved seeing what the team is doing. Jones has looked good. I mean, he moves the puck. He moves the puck forward at an NHL level. He just needs to work on his defense a little bit, and that's something we're sorely needing on the big team. Leguson's looked really good, and Leguson, when he was playing with Sekera, right, like he just fit nicely in there. In fact, I could see those two, playing together at some point at the end of this season, right? Somebody said, at Condors fans said, maybe see him in a couple of Oilers games next year. I could see him playing this year a couple of games while Sekera is still kind of, reconditioning and coming up and playing with him. I thought they played great together. Who I thought looked good together was Gravel and Jones. I thought they looked decent together of course, they played down together in Bakersfield. But that team looks really good. There's, it's the team's gelling. They got a little bit of confidence. When those guys start to come up, you got guys like Curry that come up and they play. After having a good run and career year. He's already at career goals for. I think he's at 24, 25 goals in the AHL this year. And, he'll be, I'm sure he'll be sent back probably when Kara's off of IR. He might, who knows, he might stay up. But, these guys, he plays with confidence coming into the NHL. Like I thought, limited minutes, he was still playing confident, right? Like, and it's good to see. I just hope, right, like that's the goal and the mindset, which I'm sure it is, of whoever the Oilers bring into the system, that we're going to continue to develop these players and move in the right direction. I think we got to, it's unfortunate we've got to deal with this again as an Oilers fan, but it is what it is. And who knows? It'd be nice to see a run. I don't really care about winning the draft lottery, though if we did, I wouldn't complain too much. But I just want to see them finish out the year strong and get a little bit of confidence going into next season.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up Jujar's name there. All I saw was he had a fracture, so I'm not sure if that's an arm, a leg, or what, but I don't see him coming back, until probably almost the end of the season if he's got a fracture of pretty much anything. So.
Oh, is he out for the? Yeah, you know what? I didn't even. To be fair, I saw that he was put on IR. I didn't even see what happened when the injury happened.
Yeah.
He's Jujar's he's listed as day-to-day right now.
Is he?
Undisclosed
Okay.
Day-to-day. And Puljujarvi's undisclosed on IR. Kara's, I think he's had a good sort of capable season this year. I hope he gets some more games in. I'd like to know. Would you trade him?
I mean, he brings a different element. It depends on the return. I mean, if you're just trading guys just for the sake of trading guys, he's not. To me, I don't think Jujar is a problem. And I don't feed into the whole cancer culture.
Nah, I'm with you there. Yeah.
To me, that's excuses. I don't like that. But he's a strong physical guy. Has decent wheels for pretty much a power forward kind of player. I don't mind Jujar Kara. I know a lot of people don't like him, but to me it all depends on the return. I don't think he's definitely not untouchable by any means, but I mean, what are you trading him for? We don't really have huge success, past the first round with draft choices. There's not been a lot of home runs hit by the organization in the history of ever. So I don't know if I want to trade him for a 4th, 5th round pick and, for another. I don't think you gain enough there from trading Jujar that it's really worth it. I don't think you move him.
And you go back to what I was saying about having a, if by some chance you can get some talented wingers on this team, right? Through trades and through a little bit of development and a number of things over the off season. If you put Jujar centering a 4th line, like, to me that down the center, right, is the absolute best, group of centers that I could imagine on this Oilers team. I would love to see that. Braley says, JJ, hairline fracture, foot. That's about as few words as we could use. JJ, hairline fracture, foot. All right, so there it is. Hairline fracture. Okay. That's got to be 3 weeks for a guy of his. When did he? He must have just been taken off of IR though, because he was on IR not that long ago, right? And you got to be 7 days out to be put on there. Yeah, and the other, they haven't been playing Malone, so Curry could stay up, I guess, conceivably, and they send Malone down. Curry's looked better than Malone, I've thought. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, haven't noticed much of Malone, to be honest. I thought Curry had an effective game today in limited time. I hope they start giving him, sprinkling in a few more minutes for the guy.
Yeah, it goes back to it's hard to give these guys advanced minutes, right? Like they haven't, they've kind of got to earn them a little bit, right? Now going into next game, what you saw tonight, right? What's your top line going to be? I think that you got to keep Dry and Nuge back together, and Connor on his own line. You keep Cassian and Gagne up on the top line.
Yeah, I think you do. I like that. Cassian is the guy that goes and retrieves pucks behind the net, and Gagne has talent, and him and McDavid were looking for each other immediately. The first shift they were put together, Connor kind of went for a skate and circled the net and found Sam, in the slot for an opportunity. I mean, it was instant chemistry.
Yeah. I look at Gagne out there. I don't think he's an NHLer, right? He's got NHL skill, NHL hockey IQ. I don't think he's looked out of place at all. A lot of people are making all sorts of comments about how many of these players have cleared waivers on this team.
Right.
You know what? I don't give a shit. Right? Like, I'll be honest. A lot of this kind of commentary is getting a little bit old on me, right? Because we know where the Oilers are, right? Like, it's not, we wake up, we all see the same TSN standings, NHL standings, right? Like, we all know, who's who and who's doing what, and I don't give a shit anymore, right? Like, not in an apathetic way, but in a way that says, like, let's move on, right? We know what the team is, right? Chiarelli, the bad guy's gone. Boogeyman is gone, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's clear now that Nicholson and the boys are not going anywhere, at least for the near term. Maybe in the off season we see some changes. Who knows? I don't honestly care anymore. I think, we get a new GM in. I think, a GM that comes in is going to probably get a little bit even more say, although from what I've been able to understand is, Chiarelli had all the say, right? Like, he had all the say that he needed, right? And he's, Mark, I don't always agree with Mark Spector, but he said the one thing that, I definitely agree with, which is, at the end of the day, he's the GM, right? Like, these guys, whoever the new GM is, that's the GM. So let's move on. We got rid of Chiarelli.
I think you're referring to yesterday on Oilers Now, basically when they were trying to decide who deserved the blame for the Brandon Manning.
That's exactly what I'm referring to. Yeah,
kind of fiasco. Yeah, and Spector was right. I mean, people want to say that hit him to come in. I know Frank Saravalli kind of said that was Hitch, but Hitch isn't the GM. The final say goes to Chiarelli, or at least it should have.
It did. I think anybody with half a brain knows that that's who.
I mean, a smart GM would have realized what Brandon Manning's contract was alone, and realized, okay, we're already up against the cap. Do we need to bring in a guy that's getting paid $2.25 million for the next 2 years when we're already in a cap crunch situation and we need to improve as a hockey club? How much better does Brandon Manning make us that we need to take that on? And the answer is he makes us probably worse. So why make the move?
Yeah, and that's what it boils down to. And I think honestly, when you've got Stauffer who will try his damnedest to not find fault in everything, right? And I'm kind of like him in some ways too. I try to see what people might have been thinking. I try to have some empathy for what they're thinking. But even Stauffer now has kind of come to the realization as to what where this team went wrong, and he understands. But at the end of the day, we're going to have a new GM come in, and they're going to make these decisions, and I think they'll have all the say that they need to have. I'm going to probably do this, be on here for another half hour at tops. We've got, let's talk about, I guess one of the next things that we can talk about is, because we're on the topic right now, is GM. What's your, some people think, Keith Gretzky's made 2 legit moves now, I guess, right? And, acquiring Sam Gagner, I put it out there that they're the 2 smartest moves that have been made by the Oilers in a number of years. And some people took it one way, and I took it as, it was a low bar, right? Like there's just not a lot of smart moves being made. And doing little to nothing was smart, right? Like doing, these little, baby moves was smart, and maybe some of the smartest moves we've made in a long time. What's your thought on new GM? I mean, you know what I'm saying here. Keith Gretzky shouldn't be the new GM is my thought. What's your thought there?
Yeah. It's like almost like Keith so far has systematically.
Oh, I'm going to slow you down for half a second there. I'm getting,
by step, almost in a row.
Oh, Mike, I don't know
tried
if you can hear
to
me.
clean up Chiarelli's last final moves. I mean, not exactly. I mean, you dealt Talbot.
So I sorry.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Yeah, I got about like half of that. I got something about clean up Chiarelli and dump Talbot.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. I got you now. Okay, so
it's like
say it again.
Okay, it's kind of like Keith Gretzky here is systematically one by one undoing all of Chiarelli's moves, like except for the Talbot thing. That was just shed some salary to get Reggie, to be able to put Reggie back in the lineup. But the Strome for Spooner deal, he kind of does that by acquiring Sam from Vancouver, put Brandon Manning in the minors. As far as the new GM goes, I wouldn't discount Keith Gretzky, but I certainly wouldn't hand him the job after the couple things he's done so far. You can't make a mistake again. You need to hit this one out of the park. You've got to get it right. So I think you've got to interview any hockey mind, that you think can do a job, and even some you probably don't even consider. Interview as many people as you can. Like, you got to be extensive. And I know where I would start, and I know you'd probably get a quick rejection, but I would start at Yzerman. You start there, and you work out from there. It's probably going to end real quick with Steve because he probably wants to be in Detroit, but who knows? Sometimes money talks, and maybe, the guys in that room have worked with him before through the Hockey Canada experience. So maybe Bob Nicholson's Hockey Canada experience can land you a good GM. I have no idea. I would start there, though.
50% of the franchise and whatever else he wants, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it means getting him a private jet to fly him home to Detroit, who knows? But I would start there. I would ask the questions there, and then go out from there. I think you have to have an idea of who you want, but I'd like them to explore a lot of avenues, talk to a lot of people, and be really, really thorough with this. I don't want to see them make a mistake again. Yeah.
Yeah, I that's where I'm at. I don't have any sort of front runners for the position that I think. I mean, lots of names have been thrown out there. I'm not even 100% sure that I care if the person has experience or not. What I want is a, somebody that's a critical thinker, that's got a strategy, right? Like, if I'm, and I've, interviewed tons of people in my life, and this is the kind of role that you got to have a strategy and a mindset, and you need to be, you need to have the strength and will to be able to negotiate good trades and good contracts. The one thing that the new person that comes in has to be is connected, like well connected, right? Because there's going to be, I talked about making shrewd trades for a long time. They need to make shrewd trades. They need to be creative and connected. They need to know. Rayleigh says she gets to be the new GM. No experience. Yeah, and possibly, and I think, like, whoever it is has to have the connections in place, because you have to understand, right, how, if a trade can come up that you can be creative on moving a Lucic salary, right? Like, or Brandon Manning, right? Like, you need to understand and know how to build a trade from the ground up and negotiate those trades. And, I never thought that I would be a fan of Brian Burke, but since he's moved to the analyst role, really kind of, I've liked what he's had to say about everything. But, he talks a lot about that, right? Like, and he talks about things like, GMs needing to make things a win-win for everybody, right? And it doesn't always have to be a one-way trade. The unfortunate is that, when Chiarelli was in, it was never a win-win. It was always a lose for Edmonton. But a trade doesn't have to be, who won that trade. It can be about two teams getting what they need from a trade. Ottawa might need to pick up, some cap, right? Some salary in order to make the cap number, right? The minimum plateau there, right? If the GM is creative, they're on the phone right now, right? Trying to move Manning, trying to move Lucic, trying to, maybe, like, in that instance, would you move Puljujarvi, right? If you could, cut off some of the salary that we've got in those two players, maybe not. I don't know, right? And then if you do, right, if you do that, and you're moving, a Puljujarvi and say Lucic to Ottawa, what are you taking back in return, right? Like, you're not just giving away salary, but you need, a good GM will then try to go for some draft picks, right? They're not just going to be happy with sort of winning on the salary front. They also need to build a team, so they understand that. Chiarelli just seemed to kind of have, it was kind of all or nothing with him, and his negotiation skills for a lawyer lacked something to be desired. And so now, now that's, if we can find that guy, and that's Yzerman, right? I mean, that's what Yzerman brings to the table, right? He's connected, he's smart, he's creative. He knows how to negotiate seemingly with some of the deals. That's where we're at with him. Condors fan says, who is next year's coach? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, Reed and Rob on Overtime Open Line are pretty adamant that it's not going to be Hitchcock. And you know what? I kind of always think that, it's probably pretty good chance that Keith Gretzky is not your GM next year. So I'm going to say that the new guy is going to want their guy to be the new coach, because that's usually how professional sports works. Unless by some miraculous, Miracle Max, Billy Crystal, Princess Bride moment, this team waltzes into the playoffs and goes on a run. I think that's the only way Hitchcock would be coached next year. Or they finish really well, and just end up short, but they show that they can play for the guy. I think that's about the only way that he's back next year. So I think it's going to be a new guy. I've liked the idea of Chris Noble coming to coach McDavid, kind of a young mind, relatively speaking, to the NHL game, but previous experience with Connor. I like that idea, but for the first time in forever, we've got a coach coaching this club that's actually got a Stanley Cup on his resume. To go back from that and to have, if the group is mainly, similar to what it is right now, to have a guy that doesn't have a cup on his resume and to have the ear of the room, I think will be a bit of a challenge. I think Jay Woodcroft right now in Bakersfield's doing a fine job there, but I want him to have more success down there before you give him sort of a promotion. I'd like to see Jay be a head coach down there for 2 or 3 years before you think about that. And, I think McClellan needed to go, but we're going to run into a continuity thing here. We're going to be working on a few coaches for Connor and Leon and those guys. And I mean, Nuge has been through quite a bit. So continuity is going to be something that you need to start worrying about.
Yeah, there's definitely that. I would have believed that more, and I thought we would see that when Bill Peters went to Calgary. I thought that would hurt them, change in coach like that, but obviously it hasn't. I think you just like you got to have the right coach for the team. I really like Hitch. I like the way he deals with the media. Other than maybe the one time he called the players out, and I think a bigger deal was made out of it than it really was. Probably in the locker room, right? Like they asked the guys. These guys are professionals. They're they might be young kids, but I honestly think they moved on from it like a game after, right? Like I don't think they're too worried about what Hitch said 3 or 4 games ago, right? I might be wrong, but in my mind, right? I think they're probably right what they're saying on 1260. When I look at Hitch, he's got to be about 105 right now. He's ready to retire, right? He I think if he had wanted to be here, he probably would have re-signed by now, right? And I think with everything, you're going to get a GM that's going to want to have their say on the team. I would just like to see, it doesn't have to be a guy that's got a coaching job already, right? Like, I just want to see a guy that understands the way the game is played right now, right? The last couple of years, we've seen in my mind, a dramatic shift in the way the game is played, right? Which has hurt our team, right? Hurt, the way that, we built this team and or Chiarelli built this team. But maybe you put Gulletson in there, right? I don't think Gulletson was that bad. I thought he did a great job in Calgary. His downside was having, I think, if I'm Calgary, I'm worried about Mike Smith, right, in net, right? And he kind of lost it at the end of the last season, right? He held them in for the first part of the season, and he's not used to playing a full season in net. And we're seeing that even now. The Flames are still winning, but they're outscoring teams 5-4, right? 6-5, right? Like, how long does that last, right? So I think Gulletson's a perfectly capable guy. He's young enough to understand, and he's seen enough. He's played with skilled players or coached skilled players in Calgary, and he's been around this team. I'd be all right with him stepping in and keeping some of the same guys and You know, the one thing that I particularly don't love about Hitch, and I thought that we were away from that is the fact that these guys aren't playing, with any consistency, right? Like, he'll play Connor on a line and Draisaitl on a line for. This is the first time he didn't move Draisaitl up to Connor McDavid's line when we were down by a goal in the history of his coaching the Oilers, right? Like, I was waiting for it all game. And when it didn't happen, I was pretty damn excited about that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those guys, Gulletson. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we see him come in. Woodcroft's doing a great job in Bakersfield. I'd hate to take him out of there right now. Maybe give him another year and some success, and then you can move him out. But he's doing a fantastic job, and he might have just found his niche there. But of course he knows the team too, right? He knows the team well, so he wouldn't be necessarily bad. But I don't buy into this. It does take some time to learn, if you're mid-season, to learn a new coach's strategy. But when you've got the off season and training camp and that, you come into the season with the right plays and mindset. I don't think it matters as long as it's at the beginning of the season. Pardon me. Yeah. So I don't have a coach in mind. If I was to pick, I'd probably just, given the fact that, I'd be surprised. I just, one of the things I don't want is to go if we do this, to go another way down the Hitch path, right? Like, get another guy that's been around the league for 80 years and right, has his mindset, right? Like, I'd want a guy, if not Gulletson or somebody in there, I'd want a guy that doesn't have a preconceived notion. I know that Gulletson would have a preconceived notion, but I'd want a guy that would come into this team fresh. I wouldn't mind seeing Todd Nelson. That'd be cool. I'd love to have him back in a coaching role. But I doubt very much that he would ever come back to the organization after how they treated him last time. But maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so we talked about the coach. We've got 10 minutes left. Let's chat about something that's been asked on Twitter and talked about a lot lately is Taylor Hall. If he wanted to come back and he was made available, would you take him back? Do you want him back?
That if is the the $1 billion question. I don't think for Taylor enough time has transpired for him to forget about what happened. We have a history kind of bringing guys back after a while. Like, Smitty left. We kind of brought him back with open arms and loved every second of it. Mike Comrie, kind of the same story. Sam Gagner now. But these kind of reunion tours, are usually 5, 6, 7, 10 years, after a person leaves. I think, what has it been? This is his third year. Taylor's been gone.
Yep.
I just don't think, that, unless you have an Army engineer to build that bridge, I just don't see that actually happening. I think it's making for a story that sells, like hotcakes, but
well, let's hope it helps with the listenership here.
Yeah, I just don't personally find it realistic. I made a joke about it yesterday.
Yeah.
Saying, if you think Taylor Hall's going to come back, I've got some oceanfront property in Wembley, Alberta. So.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that far removed, but I suppose that. I guess the question is, right, like he's got to be looking at an uplift on his salary, right, if he goes somewhere, and we certainly don't have
That's the other issue.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that and that for me is where the hard stop is, right? Like we talk about we talk about whether or not he'd come back, but you got to think that right, like it's just a matter of we can't afford. We couldn't afford bringing Sekera back into the lineup, right? Like, why are we talking about bringing, you're right. It is a bit of a pipe dream right now. Not even just a bit of a pipe dream. It is a pipe dream. But I think, to be fair, I think though he would play in Edmonton if these guys are coin operated, right? Like they're, as like we talk about hometown discounts, right? Like give me an $11 million a year hometown discount, right? Like I'll take it, right? There's a point at which somewhere over about the $350,000 a year mark that I'll be happy to play on it. I'll play under the league minimum. Just put me in, coach. I'm there, right? Like I'll take a hometown discount to play with the Oilers. For sure. So that's my feeling anyway. Yeah, is that's where it ends. I don't. You know what? I don't know what. It's nice to be back and after a win, and talk a little bit of Oilers. It's been a while since we've had a win. I would say that it's not been too long since we've had some positive play out of the Oilers. I've been kind of holding off. I've been holding off on having this podcast for about 2 weeks now. I think just because everything's been said, right? We know the roster's not good enough. We know, the salary cap, we're at the limit. We know the defense is not good enough. We know the Koskinen contract is a big question mark. You name an analyst and they've all talked about it on the radio or talked about it wherever. I think, it's nice, though, to have, a string of a few games, although they've not all been wins, but it's been nice to have a string of a few games where the Oilers have I think, put together a good, solid effort. I tell you, and most people know this, some people don't or still find out. I live in Calgary. I can tell you they, the playoffs haven't started here yet, and I still don't see a lot of Flames jerseys, right? It's like when people talk fair weather about Calgary, they usually think Chinook. I think fans, right? Like this, I will say this, all day. I've been out to the ODR, the outdoor rink. Probably a half dozen times this year in Calgary. I have seen probably 2-1 Oilers jerseys and Oilers logos than I've seen Flames logos. And you know what? They're a top team this year. As much as that pains me to say, right? Like they're a top team. The one thing I love about our team is the fans. There's a lot of assholes, and sometimes I'm one of them. But the fans have been great, and it's good. I like to podcast about this team because of that, for that reason. The last couple of weeks, though, has been a little bit difficult just because there's not been a lot to talk about. That's been new. I think I hope. Cross your fingers. I hope we're turning that corner. You think we are? Like you think? Here's your chance, and you get the last words to muse on the future of the Oilerslive podcast. Because if there stops being things to talk about with the Oilers, then I'll probably just stop podcasting altogether. Do you think we're at a stage now where we can sort of, and I say this, just cross your fingers, though, that we can start looking at things maybe a little bit more positively, after what you've seen the last few games? Are the Oilers turning a corner, or is this just a temporary thing? Because we've seen this before too, right? Where it's temporary, but do you think they're turning a corner?
I think, you know what, Mike, I think me and you are sort of similar. We don't like to dwell on things that we can't really change, but I've noticed the last couple of games really started on that Eastern road trip. They played pretty well over there. Didn't come out of it too well on the points front, but their game has kind of turned a little bit. They're putting in better efforts. I think having Sekera back kind of stabilizes and brings kind of a calm to their D. Just that one extra guy that can make some plays with the puck. It changes everything. McDavid has a sickness, and the guys had to learn that, okay, we're gonna have to work hard. And yeah, to what Simpson said on Stauffer, I kind of go with, a talented team can get by, with taking a period off, or even 2 periods off, and just turn it on, score some goals, and score their way out of playing bad hockey. Unfortunately, we don't have that ability. The guys on this team really need to push hard for 60 minutes to squeak out wins, and I think they're starting to see that. Tonight was a better game. You saw people deeper in the lineup trying to do their best to help contribute. They may not be world beater team. We might not have the Tampa Bay Lightning or even the Calgary Flames, as much as that pains